My name is Wakiti Muhammad. I'm one of the founding members here of Queendom, and I'm the director of operations currently. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, originally, in the heart of New Orleans, which is called the Uptown area, probably one of the roughest neighborhoods in New Orleans. And as a child, just not having as much of the support that I absolutely know all children need, I made a couple of mistakes, of course, some that I regret. Unfortunately, by a young child, I was already molested, and then, of course, by my teenage years, had to go through all of the pains and the horror of having abortions and just the typical teenager that comes from lack of resources and lack of community support. But education was always very, very important to me, so I knew that I wanted to do something with my life. I enrolled in college, but unfortunately, by my first semester in college, I found out that I was pregnant. And I thought it would be over. However, I had to go back to doing something that I know would help me to get from out of this condition. And for me, that was education. So I continued to go through all of that I needed to with, having having a child as a teenager. I continued to struggle and go through all of that, and eventually graduated with my 4-year degree. It took me 6 years, and then I went back and, of course, achieved my master's degree, and then went on to receive my PhD. And so I was very, very concerned when I was able to reach it to the PhD level. And then by that time, of course, I had already been married and had 4 children. But I was very concerned for my daughters because I know firsthand how we can make mistakes. And unfortunately, sometimes when we make those mistakes, we're not able to recover. And not only from my daughters, but I wanted other students, because as an educator and as I began to have more and more students to come around and who suffered just like I did with very low self-esteem or not having the acceptance that you may need from your peer groups or from other people. And my mother was always the one in my corner. She was always the one that would be the cheerleader, but I see that some of my students didn't have that. My father was the one that would always reassure me and make sure that he let me know that I was beautiful, but a lot of these girls did not have that. They just didn't have it. And as an educator, I wanted to teach them more than just what's in books. I wanted to teach them about themselves. I wanted them to know and understand that their virtue was worth protecting. I wanted them to know and understand that they should fight for that virtue. I wanted them to know and understand that no matter what mistakes that they made, that they would never be the sum total of those mistakes. And I wanted them to know that no one should ever be able to put them in a box, because unfortunately that happens to us all of the time. You tell your story or someone knows about your story and immediately they put you in a box. Immediately they let you know or try to make you to know or try to make you believe that you can do nothing else besides what your story determines. And I wanted to let girls know everywhere that that's absolutely not true, that their destiny is much more important because God is at the head of that, and He's the one that designs that. One of the things that I love to tell the girls is that their destiny is much too important to be compromised by anything. And one of the things that always is important to me that I convey to the girls is that they know and understand that it is important for them to break free of fear. That's one of the things that I believe holds us all as women, that we're always in bondage to fear. When I get an opportunity to tell my story and I'm talking to these young girls and I'm telling them, and they're teenagers, but I'm telling them as a teenager, I was a teenage mother. I'm telling them that I was pregnant my freshman year in college. I'm telling them that I had to overcome molestation. I'm telling them that I had to overcome the pain and the guilt of abortions. And they look at her and, they look at me and they say, well, she's just like me. And if she can do it, and now she's working on her PhD, and now she's a doctor, and they told her when she was a teenager that she wouldn't be anything because of a mistake that she made, it helps to inspire them to know that we're not the sum total of our mistakes, but we are, in fact, who God says we are. I think that it's important as an educator for myself. I want the girls, when they arrive at the summit, to be not only inspired, but to be educated. I want them to learn some new information. I want them to grasp some new concepts. I want them to think a different thought after they leave. But most importantly for me, I want them to realize and understand that it's a different way that they can live. They can actually live on purpose. As an educator, I taught at several schools in New Orleans until unfortunately Hurricane Katrina relocated myself and my family. And I always had the entrepreneur spirit, and I became, I guess, it's as they call a serial entrepreneur, in which I know I wanted to work for myself. And it had always been a dream of mine to open up my own institution, because I knew for a fact that the most important lessons are not found in books, but they come from people, they come from real life experiences. And so I wanted to design an institution and a school that would teach the way that I believe that we should be taught. And I found a wonderful partner in another very talented sister, and we began a school very popular here in Houston, Texas area called Elevated Places. And we educate students from kindergarten all the way up to high school, and they excel tremendously in the sciences. And most of our students graduate at very, very early ages. They begin college in the early teens, maybe 14, 15 years old. And we've been very successful because our paradigm has shifted, and we strive to do something different. And one of the things that I think that makes us different is understanding the spirit of sincerity, and knowing that when you come from a real place and you connect with a child, they can feel your spirit. And when they feel your spirit and they feel your energy and they feel that we're family, I can go harder for my family, because I know that my family will go harder for me.